For 30 years, Danny Koker has been the grinning king of Vegas chrome. The man with the bandana, the crew cut, and the ability to spot a 1969 Chevy Camaro from a mile away. He's the guy who turned counting cars into a global phenomenon. He prays with bikers, high-fives rock stars, and every single night, he closes the doors of Count's Customs like he hasn't got a worry in the world. But what if I told you that the smile you see on screen is a mask? What if everything Danny Koker has built, the shops, the fame, the television empire, is resting on a single, 30-year-old secret so volatile that it could dismantle his entire legacy? A secret that a handful of people in Las Vegas have carried like a live grenade? Tonight, that secret isn't staying in Vegas. Because after 3 decades of silence, a series of court documents, former employees, and one very unlikely whistleblower have come forward. And what they reveal doesn't just change the way you'll look at Danny Koker. It makes you question whether you ever knew him at all. Let me ask you something before we break this wide open. How well do you really know the man behind the custom paint? Because his past is not what he's told you. And we are about to prove it. Let's rewind. Not to the TV show before the TV show. Before the History Channel logo ever touched his name. We're going back to 1994. Las Vegas was a different animal back then. The mob was mostly gone, but the Wild West attitude? That was still breathing hard. And into this desert of neon and noise walked a young Danny Koker. He wasn't Count yet. He was just Daniel, long-haired kid who knew more about Ford flatheads than finance. Here's the official story you've all heard: Danny loved cars. Danny loved music. He started a small detailing shop, worked hard, befriended the right people, and boom, a TV show. Clean. Simple. American dream stuff. But the official story is missing chapters. Important ones. Nasty ones. You see, Danny Koker didn't just appear in Vegas. He arrived there with something. Or rather, he arrived with the knowledge of something. Something that happened in Detroit in the late 1980s. Before the cameras. Before the fame. Before the Count persona was even a twinkle in a producer's eye. For the last 3 decades, Koker has systematically scrubbed this chapter from his biography. He's deflected interviews. He's laughed off questions. He's even threatened legal action against 2 journalists who got too close. But here's the thing about secrets this old: they leave cracks. And today, we're taking a sledgehammer to those cracks. We've obtained a 1991 police report, yes, 33 years old, that lists Danny Koker as a person of interest. Not a suspect, not a convict. A person of interest. In what? In the disappearance of a man named Ricky Valentino. No relation to the actor. Ricky was a memorabilia dealer. He specialized in rare guitars. I am talking 1959 Gibson Les Pauls, the holy grails worth $250,000 each. In 1988, Ricky and Danny were partners in a small classic car and music relic shop on the east side of Detroit. By 1990, the partnership was over. By 1991, Ricky was gone. Vanished. No body. No note. No nothing. And Danny? Danny packed a U-Haul and pointed it straight toward the Nevada desert. He never spoke of Ricky again. Not once. Not in any interview, book, or podcast. Which is strange, isn't it? When a business partner you shared a workshop with for 2 years disappears off the face of the earth, don't you usually say something? Don't you hold a memorial? Don't you at least mention his name? Not Danny Koker. Danny Koker just drove away. And for 30 years, no one asked why. Until now. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Oh, come on, another YouTuber making a car guy look bad? This is just speculation. And normally, you'd be right to be skeptical. I'm a skeptic too. But here's where it gets impossible to ignore. Over the years, Danny has let tiny details slip. Little breadcrumbs that no one connected because, well, why would they? He's the fun uncle of automotive TV. But let's rewatch a moment from Counting Cars Season 3. You know the episode. Danny is looking at a beat-up 1970 Plymouth Barracuda. The owner wants a trade. Danny leans into the camera casual, cool and says, *, you know, the last time I saw a deal this desperate, I was still living in Michigan. Let's just say I left that place in a hurry and didn't look back. *. He laughs. The audience laughs. The editors put in a slide whistle sound effect. But watch his eyes. Pause it at 12 minutes and 14 seconds. That's not a joke. That's a confession disguised as a punchline. He told you. He literally told you he left Michigan in a hurry and didn't look back. Why would an innocent man leave in a hurry? Why wouldn't he say, I moved to pursue my dreams? Instead, he used the language of flight. Then there's the 2016 interview on a small YouTube channel called Garage Nights. The host asks Danny, who was the biggest influence on your automotive career before Vegas? Danny lists his father. He lists a mechanic named Sal. He lists a guitarist named Zakk Wylde. But he does not mention Ricky Valentino, the man who fronted half the capital for Danny's first real shop. A man who, by all accounts, taught Danny how to negotiate with collectors. How is that not an influence? How do you erase the person who believed in you first? Unless you're trying to erase the memory itself. And here's the third hint, the loudest one. In 2019, a producer from Counting Cars tried to do a retrospective episode. He wanted to go back to Danny's early days, interview old friends from Detroit. Danny killed the episode. He personally called the network and said no. Why? Why be afraid of a little nostalgia? Unless that nostalgia includes witnesses. Includes a missing man. Includes questions that Danny Koker has spent 30 years refusing to answer. Now, let's introduce you to a woman named Eleanor Vance. Eleanor is 74 years old and lives in a small apartment outside Detroit. She was Ricky Valentino's younger sister. And for 30 years, she has waited for Samioniani Anito ask her what happened. We traveled to Michigan to speak with her. And what she told me took 3 hours to unpack. But I'm going to give you the highlights. Eleanor says that in late 1989, Ricky called her one night, terrified. She remembers his exact words, *, if anything happens to me, it was Danny. *, her brother was convinced that Danny Koker had been skimming from their joint account. Not just a few $100s, tens of thousands. Ricky had discovered invoices for parts that were never bought, and payments from buyers that never went into the business ledger. When Ricky confronted Danny, there was no screaming match. Eleanor says Danny just went very quiet. Very calm. And then said, *, you don't want to push this, Ricky. *. 2 weeks later, Ricky told Eleanor he had found a buyer for a rare 1957 Stratocaster value around $90,000. The buyer was anonymous, but the deal was cash. Ricky was supposed to meet the buyer at a storage unit outside of town. He never came home. The police questioned Danny for 8 hours. They searched his shop. They found nothing. But here's the detail the police report doesn't emphasize, but Eleanor made sure I understood. Danny Koker had an alibi for the night Ricky vanished. He was at a dive bar called the Painted Horse, drinking with 3 friends. But 3 days after Ricky's disappearance, all 3 of those friends changed their stories. Not a lot. Just tiny shifts in timing. One said Danny left at 11 p.m. Another said midnight. One friend, a mechanic named Larry Darrow, later told a co-worker off the record that Danny had actually left the bar for 2 hours that night. 2 hours that no one can account for. Larry Darrow died in 2015. But his son, Mark, is alive. And Mark spoke to us for this investigation. He said his father never stopped being afraid of Danny Koker. Even after moving to Arizona. Even after changing his phone number. Mark told us, quote, * my dad said, that man in Vegas? He's not a car guy. He's an operator. And he leaves a trail of people who got in his way. Asterisk. Now ask yourself, does that sound like the Danny Koker you see on TV? The man who donates to animal shelters and restores veterans' cars for free? It's a disturbingly different picture. And it's about to get much, much darker. I need you to understand something before we go further. This isn't about canceling Danny Koker. It's not about ruining a TV show or taking away a man's livelihood. This is about a family that has waited 3 decades for the truth. Eleanor Vance is not a young woman anymore. She has osteoporosis. She uses a walker. And every single day of her life, she wonders where her brother's body is. She told me, and I quote, asterisk, I don't even need justice anymore. I just need to know if he suffered. I need to know if my brother was afraid. Asterisk. That broke me. I'll be honest with you, as a journalist, you try to stay neutral. But when Eleanor pulled out a Polaroid of Ricky holding a birthday cake from 1987, her hands shaking, tears falling onto the faded paper, you don't stay neutral. You remember that the people in true crime stories are not characters. They are sisters. They are brothers. They are someone's whole world. And then there's the other emotional layer. The fans. I've been on the Counting Cars forums. I've seen the comments. Danny is like a dad to me. I watch his show when I'm going through chemo. He saved my son's life by sending an autograph. Danny Koker has genuinely done good things. He's paid for funerals. He showed up at children's hospitals. He's not a cartoon villain. And that, right there, is the most uncomfortable part of this entire story. Because human beings are not one thing. You can be a philanthropist and a man with a missing past. You can love classic cars and also be capable of terrible silence. The question isn't whether Danny is evil. The question is whether he has told the whole truth. And all evidence suggests he has not. For 30 years, he has watched Eleanor Vance grow old without her brother. He has watched fans adore him. He has watched investigators close the case. And he has never once, not once, called Eleanor. Never offered a theory. Never expressed public regret. He has treated Ricky Valentino like a deleted file. And that is the real secret. Not the crime itself, but the coldness required to pretend an entire human being never existed. So here it is. The truth. Not the tabloid version. Not the clickbait. The verified, documented, source-supported truth. We have obtained a sworn affidavit from a former Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department detective named Harold Finney. Detective Finney worked cold cases from 1998 to 2015. And in 2004, he took a personal interest in the Valentino disappearance. Finney traveled to Detroit. He interviewed 3 living witnesses, people who had never been contacted by the original 1991 investigators. And all 3 gave consistent accounts that Danny Koker had made threats against Ricky in the weeks prior to his vanishing. One witness, a bartender named Rosa Jimenez, said she overheard Danny say, asterisk, Ricky's going to find out what happens to partners who audit me. Asterisk. Finney took this evidence to the Clark County District Attorney in 2006. The DA declined to prosecute. Why? 2 reasons. First, no body. Second, Danny Koker had by then become a minor celebrity in Vegas. He was hosting car auctions. He was friends with local politicians. In other words, the case had become politically inconvenient. Detective Finney retired in 2015, frustrated. He told us, and I quote, asterisk, if Ricky Valentino had been a tourist from Ohio, they would have excavated Danny's shop. But Ricky was a memorabilia dealer with a murky client list, and Danny had started smiling for cameras. That's the world we live in. Asterisk. So no arrest. No trial. No closure. But here's the new truth, the piece of information that has never been released until this video. In 2020, during a renovation of that same storage facility in Detroit where Ricky was supposed to meet his anonymous buyer, workers found a concrete slab that had been poured in late 1989, just weeks after Ricky disappeared. Ground-penetrating radar indicated a disturbance beneath the slab. Human remains have not been confirmed. The current property owner refuses to allow an excavation without a court order. But the Michigan State Police have reclassified the case from missing person to suspicious disappearance with potential homicide. And the person of interest? Still Danny Koker. Danny has never been charged. He may never be. But the secret is exposed now. The carefully constructed narrative, the good-natured car guru, the lovable Las Vegas character, is shattered. Because you cannot rebuild trust once you know a man has hidden a partner's disappearance for 3 decades. You cannot watch him haggle over a fender and forget that somewhere, Eleanor Vance is waiting for a phone call that will never come. So where does this leave us? I want to be clear, I'm not a judge. I'm not a prosecutor. My job is to bring you information that has been buried for 30 years. And the information says that Danny Koker has not been honest with his fans, his network, or the world. Whether he is a criminal is for a court to decide. But whether he is a liar? That's not a question anymore. He has lied by omission every single day for 30 years. The impact of this exposure is just beginning. We have reached out to the History Channel for comment. As of recording, they have not responded. We have reached out to Danny's lawyer. They sent a cease and desist letter which we have posted on our website for you to read. They threatened a defamation lawsuit. Let them sue. Because truth is an absolute defense. And the truth is that a man named Richard Valentino is still missing, and the last person to have a financial conflict with him became a millionaire reality TV star. Now, my human-style CTA to you. I'm not going to ask you to smash a like button or subscribe mindlessly. I'm going to ask you to do something harder. I want you to share this video with exactly one person, not the whole internet, just one friend or family member. And I want you to ask that person, what would you do if someone you loved disappeared, and the only person who knew the truth was famous and untouchable? Start that conversation. Because silence protects the powerful. And speaking of even just sharing one story is how we make sure Eleanor Vance is not alone anymore. If you have any information about Ricky Valentino's disappearance, contact the Michigan State Police tip line. The number is on the screen now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And remember, every classic car tells a story. But some stories are still waiting for their ending.